Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, Everyday Spirituality with Karen Wyatt. And I'm so glad you're here with me for this episode today. I'm talking about tools for the chrysalis, what to do when everything is falling apart. And this is really a follow-up from my most recent blog post on Substack, which I'll just give you a quick summary of it here, but I'll leave a link in case you'd like to read the whole post. But there I talk about navigating the chrysalis phase because I believe as a society right now, we are in the middle of a chrysalis, and let me explain that to you. I've talked about this before, this metaphor, the life cycle of the butterfly, and the fact that the butterfly's life begins as a caterpillar whose only job is to eat as much as possible, to just consume everything around it, to grow and get fat and squishy. And so the caterpillar kind of mindlessly goes about its happy little life, eating leaves, chomping on everything in sight in order to keep growing and growing until something signals the caterpillar to begin to dangle from a branch and begin spinning a silk cocoon that it wraps around itself. This forms the chrysalis. And the real miracle is what is happening inside the chrysalis during this phase of the life cycle, and which we cannot see from the outside. So we can't know exactly what's happening inside the chrysalis. But what we do know from scientists who have studied it is that the body of the caterpillar is disintegrating inside the chrysalis. It's essentially dissolving into goo, this sticky, nutrient, gooey substance inside the chrysalis. And the only thing that remains intact from that previous caterpillar are cells called imaginal cells that contain the DNA precursors of the butterfly that will one day emerge. So these imaginal cells are floating inside the goo. They become activated, but first they're actually attacked by the immune system of the caterpillar that remains within the goo. And so the imaginal cells have to fend off this attack in order to survive. And they also have to find one another. They have to migrate together because no one imaginal cell has enough content to create a butterfly. We need all of the imaginal cells to come together and work together to make the butterfly. So there are these essential miracles that have to take place inside this chrysalis. The imaginal cells have to be activated, fend off the immune attack, find one another, and collaborate and work together for the butterfly to form inside the chrysalis. This is a marvelous metaphor for, I think, some of the changes that our society is going through right now. In my mind, we've passed through our caterpillar stage of mindless consumption, just going about life, eating, taking everything in, acquiring things, accumulating, gathering things up for ourselves without concern for anything else or the good of the whole. We have been through this mindless phase of taking in a lot and demanding a lot and utilizing everything we could find around us. But suddenly we find ourselves in the midst of a cocoon. The chrysalis has formed, and that old lifestyle and way of being here on the earth is not sustainable. It is disintegrating before our very eyes. Everything that we were, our old identity, the old systems that kept us afloat, the institutions that we relied upon, all of them are beginning to crumble and dissolve away. Nothing feels secure or substantial or stable right now. It is all in dissolution, except for the imaginal cells, which will be what remains within the chrysalis, but hopefully there are imaginal cells within the goo of our society right now that are going to become activated, that hold the potential for the future, for new emergence, for something beautiful and new that will come on the scene that is going to be entirely different from the old ways of being, from where we started. So we're in the middle of this shift, and for the caterpillar, this is catastrophe. This is total disaster. To be completely dissolving away and losing everything. And we feel that in our caterpillar selves, that type of despair and loss of everything that we have known, and fear and concern. And yet, we need to be able to maintain hope that there are also amongst us these imaginal cells that are carrying the blueprint and the material for the new emergence, for what will come next in our society. And I believe each one of us is being called to be an imaginal cell ourselves, to rise beyond the caterpillar ways and the caterpillar self, to be an imaginal being that can bring something new onto this planet and into life, into our society, into our day-to-day existence. And it's going to require us to look within, to do a lot of growth and healing, to truly become imaginal cells. And we also are going to need to cooperate and connect together with one another, because an individual imaginal cell cannot create a butterfly. It cannot create anything alone and by itself. And we are at a place right now where connecting, collaborating, synergizing is absolutely necessary for us to move forward. And so, as we know from the butterfly life cycle, eventually the butterfly does emerge from the cocoon. It has a rest period where it has to allow its wings to dry before it can fly. If it tries to fly too quickly, it will fall to the ground because its wings are weighted down and too heavy with moisture. It has to let them dry before it can actually fly. And just think of how rich this entire metaphor is in all these descriptions of new things that emerge that sometimes are not quite ready yet, and we have to allow them whatever time they need to fully form before we try to utilize them. And so I also like the part of the metaphor where the immune system of the caterpillar, the old way of being, attacks the imaginal cells that contain the new, because that is happening all around us in our society right now. The old structures, the old systems are terrified and are going all out to try to attack and destroy what is new, what is progressive, what is modern, what is visionary, what is forward thinking, what wants to lead us to a new place. What is old is trying to attack and destroy everything new and trying to take us backwards in time, which actually is not even possible. We cannot go backwards and survive. So we're at this place, those of us who could even see ourselves as perhaps being an imaginal being here on planet Earth, we may feel like we're also under attack. It's a frightening time, and we don't know if we're going to make it. We don't know if we'll survive. We don't know how we're ever going to get beyond the chrysalis stage and what will come after. But I want to propose a few tools that I think are necessary to help us navigate this phase and what we can do to get through it, to help ourselves and to help one another. And so the very first tool that I want to talk about is grief. Whenever something new is on the horizon, we need to be able to grieve what is being lost, to grieve what is dissolving and disintegrating and falling apart around us, to grieve our old selves, our old identities, to grieve what we've lost. Maybe we're going through an illness at the same time, or some kind of injury. Maybe relationships are falling apart. Maybe we've lost things financially. Maybe we've lost some of our material possessions because we've been through difficulty. We have to grieve over everything that has been lost, everything that is dissolving and disintegrating right now. And it's important. The grief is important, even as much as part of us looks to the future and and wants to move on, we still have to grieve what is being left behind and what has been lost, because that helps us complete the cycle. To fully grieve and to fully process and let go of what has been true and what has held us in the past. Without grief, we remain attached in some ways to the past, and grief helps us metabolize those attachments. So instead of becoming obstacles to us, they actually become integrated within us and become part of us. So grieving is an essential part of this process within the chrysalis of how we move on. And we need, I think, small rituals that we can perform as individuals for ourselves. Maybe we write a thank you and goodbye letter to something that has changed, that is never going to be the same again. Here's something for me. I recently had to leave the state where I was living, the place I was living in the very high mountains. My heart couldn't tolerate the very high altitude anymore. I had to leave suddenly and say goodbye. And that is a grieving process for me. And I love this idea of writing just a thank you. Thank you for everything that my life was when I lived there. I feel it. I feel the pain of losing everything that was, but I need to be able to say goodbye. And I cannot continue to carry a wish that I could go back in the past and be there again. I have to allow things to move on. And part of that process is this feeling the gratitude for what was, and being able to say goodbye to it, but allowing it to remain part of me, a healthy part of who I am now, that I had a chance to live there. We can do some little rituals like lighting candles, and maybe we light a candle for each thing that we're saying goodbye to or letting go of. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel all the sadness that comes with change. And it comes along with excitement over newness and having something new form for us. We also feel the pain of loss when change occurs. And so we need these little rituals. One I talk about all the time is gathering flowers or leaves or sticks or even stones and dropping them into flowing water and watching them float away. And the power of that, of saying goodbye as you watch something float pleasantly, beautifully on the water. I think that's a really powerful ritual. So the first tool, grieving rituals, we need those to help us as we're moving through this chrysalis phase. The second tool goes, I think, hand in hand with grief, which is forgiveness, because oftentimes one of the reasons we can't fully process grief is that it contains feelings of guilt or resentment or blame towards someone else. That's why we don't carry our grief with us. We don't incorporate it and integrate it into us in a healthy way, because we are carrying blame either for ourselves or towards someone else for the grief and the pain of the past. So forgiveness is essential if we want to move on and to complete in a healthy way our grieving. We also need to be able to forgive. And so remember that forgiveness is not about letting someone else off the hook. Many times we have been wronged by people. We have reasons for our resentment. We have reasons that we're carrying our pain. But it's really to release ourselves from being held back by the pain and by the resentment that we carry. That's what forgiveness does for us. It just releases those attachments, and it doesn't make it right, and it doesn't excuse the person who did something wrong. It simply means that we're not going to carry the weight of it and allow it to hold us back, allow it to keep us stuck in the goo inside the chrysalis. We want to keep growing, and we want to be able to transform. We want to be able to move forward in our own lives and for our world and our society. And so forgiveness is essential. And I think first we have to recognize what we need to forgive. And sometimes we aren't even aware that we're holding a lot of grudges and resentments from the past. And we need to spend some time journaling. Most likely, that's what I suggest, in order to get in touch with the resentments that we're harboring inside. And then we need to have rituals again for forgiveness, and forgiveness can be built into our grief rituals as we let go of something. We watch flower petals float down the stream. Perhaps what we're letting go is our blame and our anger and our resentment. But we can also do writing about forgiveness, and by taking different perspectives. And I recommend what I call the 4-view process, where you take a neutral perspective with no emotion involved. Just describe whatever the event is that has happened. Then you take the other person's perspective, the person that you maybe have resentment toward or conflict with. You write the story of what happened from their perspective. Then you write your own story about what happened, but with a much bigger context of what happened that you're resentful about in the context of your whole life, not just that one particular episode, but how does it fit in? What other events of your life tied into it? What else was involved that came up for you at the time of whatever this particular conflict occurred? And then the fourth perspective is what I call the galaxy perspective, where you try to get the biggest possible view of the event that happened in the past. And it's the view that, say, your guardian angel or a spiritual guide or even your counselor might have on the situation, of when we step back and look at it from a more neutral vantage point. Is there something to be gained from what happened? Is there anything that could be learned or anything that could be gained? Is there any diamond hidden within, any gem inside this terrible thing that happened that you can hold on to and that you can actually build upon and feel good about? So that is the fourth perspective, the galaxy view of whatever has happened. And I've found that to be a very helpful process for forgiveness when there's something that I really need to work through that happened in the past. So that's a tool I highly recommend. And again, it involves journaling, because usually that's one of the best ways of working through these deeper layers, is to do it in writing, as if we're writing a letter to ourselves, or we're having a conversation maybe with our own journal back and forth about what has happened. The third tool is simply to use your creativity. And I think this new emergence that is occurring or going to occur is going to come from our spontaneous creativity. And so maybe you don't consider yourself a creative person. Maybe you don't think you can write or draw or compose poetry or sing or make music, anything creative. But I'll bet there are ways in which you show creativity. The way you have planted flowers in your garden, the way you frost a cake that you've baked, the way you prepare a meal and serve it, the way you've arranged the pictures on the wall in your living room. I would bet that there are signs of your creativity all around you in your day-to-day life. And it's time to really start focusing in on what is the creative urge within you that wants to come out, and how can you use your creativity? Part of it, yes, use your creativity for the grief and forgiveness rituals. Write poetry create some kind of special flower gathering ritual or paper burning ritual. Use your creativity there to help you, but also just sit with the idea that what you're going to be asked to do in the future is to be as creative as you can be in your own unique way. And so start noticing where you add little touches to things. You have little bursts and inspirations of creativity. Those are the things you want to grow and lean into, and you want to focus on those so that you can utilize this creativity as we move forward, because the world needs it. It needs your creative touches, whatever they might be, however unique they are. So it doesn't have to be big, anything small, anything that comes from your heart. And it doesn't have to be perfect in any way. The act of creating is what we need, and it doesn't, there's no judgment about whatever it is that you create or produce. Maybe you draw something with a crayon on a piece of paper. There's no judgment. It is simply that you act upon what wants to come from you, from your heart, your creative heart, and you give it some sort of expression in some unique way, whatever that might be. And then the fourth tool is to learn to surrender. And this is really being willing to cooperate with things as they are. And it's, in a sense, to let go of resisting in the form of do not try to keep the past alive. Do not try to move backwards. Do not try to control or stop change from happening. Be in a place where you are willing to allow the flow of life, and you want to align yourself with the flow of life. But again, there is resistance for everything that stops life, everything that tries to bring life to an end, everything that tries to reverse life. You free yourself from your own urges to control and go backwards, so that you yourself are not creating the resistance to the flow of life, the goodness and the positive flow of life, and the migration of the imaginal cells toward one another. You yourself are not generating that resistance, but you learn how to oppose the resistance that comes outside of you, the attacks and the from the immune system, of the old system that is trying to stop you. You learn how to oppose those and how to be self-protective and how to take care of others from the attacks. So surrender is not about being passive or apathetic and sitting back and just whatever happens, happens. It's about freeing yourself of your own resistance and resentment, but being able to help guard what is tender and fragile and new that is trying to emerge, being able to help protect it from outside attacks, from those who would do harm, from those who wish to destroy what it is that is trying to be created for the future. So that's what I mean by surrender, not a passive act of letting go and not caring anymore, but a very deeply caring act of service in a way where you're willing to give yourself and your time to help protect what is new and what wants to emerge in our society, and to protect the vulnerable as well. So that's the idea of surrender. And the idea is to have a certain amount of trust in what you can't see yet, to trust in the emergence. Something is trying to emerge. The butterfly is waiting and ready to come. All the potential for the butterfly is there. The imaginal cells may not have coalesced yet. It may not be happening yet, but the potential is there, and have trust in the potential and in the possibilities. And so you surrender as well in that regard to trusting that what is new and needed can happen. It is possible. And you let go of trying to control things that you can't control and focusing only on the things that you literally can do with your own creativity. And then the final tool, the final task of this chrysalis phase is to recognize other imaginal cells around you that are in your life. Who are the other imaginal beings who are bringing their creativity, who are just stirring awake, who have something to bring and something to offer? And I mean, literally, all of us can and should be imaginal cells, but some people may not be awake yet and may not be able to utilize the potential that they carry. So be on the lookout for people in your life who come your way that you could be collaborating with or cooperating with, that you could work together. You come up with an idea together for your neighborhood, something you could do, something you could change or offer. And you put that together. And instead of just relying on your own DNA and what you contain within you, you find others to work with and create synergy between you. That is when something new truly emerges. So remember that vision again. The imaginal cells must work together. No one imaginal cell can produce a butterfly. All of the imaginal cells need to come together, and that's where their strength lies and their creativity lies, and that's true for us as well. We need to find each other. So I wanted to just share with you a Rumi quote that I really love, which is, be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder. Help someone's soul heal. Walk out of your house like a shepherd. And so this, I think, is maybe what we're being called to do as imaginal cells. First of all, be a lamp. Shine your light. Illuminate the path for other people. One of the ways that you'll find other imaginal cells is to have your light on, shining out there, and be on the lookout for other people shining their lights. You will recognize each other by your light. So be a lamp and make sure that you're shining wherever you go. And that's how you'll be attracted to those other imaginal beings who can work with you. And they will be attracted to you as well because your light will shine. Also, shining your light is a good way to wake someone else up who might still be slumbering inside the cocoon and might be afraid of waking up and being activated. Shining your light is a good way to show the path to others. Also, the quote says, be a lifeboat. Be a container, a safe container that can hold other people's fear and other people's struggles. You can help hold it and carry it in your lifeboat because you are afloat and stable, and you're floating through this passageway and going with the flow. You can help others learn how to go through the flow by being a lifeboat where they can temporarily rest and relax until they get the hang of it, until they see it and it makes sense for them. So be the lifeboat. So there's a lamp shining light out, and it's coming from a lifeboat where if someone needs to hang on for just a bit in order to get clarity, in order to see what's happening, in order to get their bearings, you can provide them with a safe resting place for a while. And the lifeboat isn't so much about rescuing people that you then become responsible for. It's simply about being this container that allows other people to briefly feel safe so that they themselves can become a lamp and create their own lifeboat and move on. And then the third is to be a ladder. And so I really like this idea as well. It is showing other people that there is a way to grow. There is a way to move beyond where you are right now, a way to take even the tiniest step and to make a tiny bit of change that may make a huge difference. And so show people the ladder that can help them take the littlest tiny steps. the next right step. We've talked about that before when we were looking at the movie Frozen 2 and the song about the next right step. So be the ladder and shine your light on the ladder so other people can see, oh, look, there's a place you can rest your foot that can help you move just a tiny bit from where you are. And so Rumi goes on to say, help someone's soul heal. That's what we're doing with our grief and forgiveness rituals. And I say, yes, we need individual rituals, but we also need communal rituals. So be thinking creatively, what could you do in your group, in your family, in a group of friends, in your neighborhood, your community? What could you do that could help a larger group of people grieve and find forgiveness? What is possible there? And then walk out of your house like a shepherd. And I love that idea because the shepherd is the protector. So when we were talking about you surrender, and yet at the same time, you protect what is fragile, what is just beginning to grow, what is just beginning to form, the newness that is emerging, that is coming. You are the shepherd of it, and you are willing to take steps to protect the fragile new growth, to allow it the time and space that it needs in order to become a reality. You're willing to go through the uncertainty, the unknown timeline, to be in the darkness and not know where we're headed. How long is this going to take? What will happen next? We honestly don't know. We don't have answers to any of those questions, but you're willing to be a shepherd in the darkness, shining your light, offering your protection to what is new and honest and beautiful and true and of the soul that is trying to emerge, trying to be born, and trying to rest its wings before it can fly. So I'll read this Rumi quote one more time. Be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder. Helps someone's soul heal. Walk out of your house like a shepherd. I love it. I think that's a great way to end this episode. We have our goals for the week. Walk out of your house like a shepherd this week. Be creative, grieve and forgive, and look for the imaginal cells around you. I'm working on that as well. And I hope I'm shining a light and that we can all find and see one another soon. And I'll be back next week. Until then, remember that we're here for love, which means we're also here for grief. So face your fear. Be ready for whatever life brings you next, and love each and every amazing moment that you have a chance to be here on this beautiful planet. Bye-bye.